Hey guys, welcome to an episode of Snoozers or Losers. We got Kyle from Boom Bust, and we got Tony from Fantasy Quick Hits. We're going to discuss a couple running backs and wide receivers. So, first one we are going to discuss today is going to be Zeke. We got Zeke Elliott. Tony, snoozer or loser for you?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the fact that you made the right choice and put Kyle on the loser side and gave me the snoozer side.
Because you're sleepy.
I got to tell you that this might seem like a bit out of left field because I put Zeke as a snoozer this year, and I know many rankings you find him in top 5, maybe just outside the top 5, but I just think Zeke's going to blow it up this year. This guy has the potential to finish as the number 1 running back. Dak coming back from his ankle injury. McCarthy's going to be looking to protect Dak. Zeke looks to be in some of the best shape of his career. I think he's out to prove his value in this offense. Offensive line looks strong. He is a great receiving option out of that backfield. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup are going to be taking pressure off of Zeke. He just looks to be ready, primed, mature, and I'm expecting big things out of Zeke this year.
Awesome. Kyle, what do you think? Snoozer or loser? Zeke Elliott.
Total snoozer. I think he's going to do amazing. I agree 100% with Tony. I think last year he gave up a little bit. Or not gave up, but just kind of lost the will to live after Dak got hurt. Plus, I really hope he stays away from wearing sleeves this year because we don't need fumbling issues again. But I agree. The weapons in that offense are going to open up lanes for him. They get all their offensive linemen back. So I completely agree. I think he's going to have a really, really big year.
It is decided. Zeke is a snoozer.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Let's move on to our next one then, and let's talk Antonio Gibson. Kyle, we'll go to you first. Snoozer or loser, Antonio Gibson?
Antonio Gibson, for me, is also a snoozer because he's being taken after some guys which we might end up talking about later that I don't think are going to do as well. I think he'll outperform his ADP, especially considering everything coming out of camp and the way they're wanting to use him over there and everything. Everything's saying, hey, they want to use him just like they use Christian McCaffrey. And we've heard that since the day he was drafted. So after the way he showed out last year, I think plus they got a better quarterback this year too.
Very true.
And Curtis Samuel's in there to help Terry McLaurin kind of open up some lanes and whatnot. So I think he's going to do big things this year. Earlier in the offseason, I wouldn't have said that. I thought the hype train was a little high. But then they went and got Fitzpatrick and Curtis Samuel, like I said, and some other stuff. So, I think he's going to have a really, really good year. Snoozer.
All righty. Tony, same question to you. Antonio Gibson, snoozer or loser?
Well, Kyle and I are definitely in agreement tonight.
So far.
Excuse me?
So far,
yeah. Gibson to me is the next best thing. I think that Kyle hit it on the head. Ron Rivera, I don't want to say he made McCaffrey, but his style and how he envisions using the running back, he's bringing that to Washington. Gibson is a bona fide stud. No risk of him losing touches. The one knock on Gibson going into the season was just how much he was being utilized coming out of the backfield as a receiving back. And I think we're going to put that to rest this year. I think he's going to be a dual threat, both running the football, catching the football. We saw a little snippet of that in the Thursday night preseason game. And I do think he's going to kind of propel into fantasy football stardom this year. This could be your last chance to kind of get on the Antonio Gibson train.
Yep. So, again, it is decided. Unfortunately, Washington, as a Cowboys fan, Washington has a good running back. So Gibson, also a snoozer. Awesome, guys. So how about we switch gears a little bit? Let's pop over to some wide receivers really quick, and let's do Kenny Golladay. God, seems like we're just kind of sticking in the NFC East here. Okay, so let's do Kenny Golladay. Kyle, what do you think about Kenny Golladay?
I'm not touching Kenny Gallaudet with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't touch
Do you
him
have
with
a
somebody
10-foot pole?
else's. I wouldn't touch him with somebody else's 10-foot pole. Friends don't let friends draft Kenny Gallaudet. It was bad enough, before, but now with the Lions. But now that he's with the Giants, and that team is rough.
They got such great QB play, though.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is just a bona fide stud of the future. Probably beat Tom Brady in a Super Bowl.
I think crazier things happen with Eli.
Yeah, true. But yeah, he's already showing he can't stay healthy. He's already hurt in camp and stuff. There's nothing for me to get excited about with Kenny Golladay in New York. Loser for me.
Loser. Alrighty. Going over to you, Tony. Snoozer or loser? Kenny Golladay.
Yeah, once again, we're in agreement. They did give Golladay a monster contract. $72 million is a huge amount of money. So they definitely have high hopes for Golladay. I just don't see the quarterback play. I think that's the first thing I'm looking at when you look to your receivers, who's throwing the football. And Daniel Jones is really he's limited as a quarterback. Certainly, he's a significant downgrade from Stafford, who may have one of the best arms in the league. They also, they have a loaded receiver room. They just drafted this kid, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, John Ross. They've got Evan Ingram, a tight end, and they're looking to utilize him more in the passing game. Saquon's coming back from injury, and he's also utilized as a receiver out of the backfield. So I don't see the volume there to warrant a high pick for Golladay, and I would expect him to line up in that loser column this year.
Cool. So in agreement, once again, it is decided Lahu Zahur. All right, guys. Let's do another wide receiver really quick. Antonio Brown. Tony, let's start with you. What do you think of Antonio Brown this year? Snoozer or loser?
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. It's just tough when you have two stud alpha male receivers in Godwin and Evans. Brady he's plenty of options. Gronk is coming back. I think Brady could potentially exceed his fantasy production from last year. The guy just doesn't seem to lose a step year after year. But Antonio Brown has seemed to have some difficulty transitioning into this offense. He's more of kind of like a gadget receiver, and he's a guy who will not wind up on my fantasy team even as a long shot. So I've got, surprisingly, Antonio Brown is a fantasy loser this year.
Ooh, got him as a loser. I've seen a lot of opposite commentary online, so that's interesting. Kyle, what do you think then on Antonio Brown, snoozer or loser?
Yeah, you're about to hear some more different commentary right here, actually. I got him as a snoozer. We saw some flashes kind of towards the end of last year of what he looks like once he's kind of gotten more up to speed. He was an alpha receiver in Pittsburgh before he ended up playing with Tom Brady down here. I think he's got it in him to do it again. But when we're looking at snoozers, I think what's important to remember is we're looking at them for them to outperform their ADP. And right now he is going criminally low in drafts, considering the talent level and the opportunity there in Tampa Bay. So for me, I think he's one injury to one of those guys too, and you got a number one receiver on your team, if you think about that. But I think he's just too talented a guy to keep down. even under Godwin and Evans. So for me, he's a snoozer.
I'd agree with that take if this was 2010, but it's 2021. He's
boy.
33, an aging receiver
Shots fired.
on a loaded offense. They won the Super Bowl last year with basically nothing from Antonio Brown. So my rebuttal is the volume is just not going to be there for Antonio Brown, and he's an aging receiver who will be more of a.
He took some time off.
Okay. We'll see. I'm still not convinced that he doesn't have some headspace issues. So, but
I can't disagree with that.
See.
But
so our first disagreement. I'll bring some commentary in here and kind of touch on a couple points that you guys made. I kind of agree with Kyle on the ADP and outperforming ADP. I mean, he is being drafted almost criminally low. I mean, I kind of agree with that. But at the same time, I haven't targeted him in any draft, and I probably won't because there's so much risk. Like Tony's touched on, there's risk there with him being a head case. I still think that exists. And again, is the volume going to be there? But again, as Kyle said, it's almost like a handcuff situation. If one of these guys go down, and we've seen Mike Evans and Godwin both go down with injuries last season is a good example of that. Now, all of a sudden, he becomes even more relevant really quick. So there is upside there. It's risk and reward. I mean, you get rewarded if it pays off. I'm not targeting him if he falls deep enough to me to that criminally low ADP and there's no one else I want. I'm still probably not drafting him over a potential good tight end flex play. I'm still not going after Antonio Brown, I don't think, just because the risk is too high. And prove me wrong. And if he does, I think I'm okay with that. But I can definitely see outperforming his ADP, I think is 100% possible. I know that's not a defining decision on whether he's a snoozer or a loser. I can just tell you, I am not targeting this guy, but I don't blame you if you do. So high risk, possibly high reward, or a wasted draft pick completely. So maybe taking that late draft pick.
Depends on how late you can get him.
If you can get him really late, I say go for it.
I'm not going to be targeting him because he's started going too early now. Everybody's kind of on the bandwagon, so I'm not targeting him anymore. In early offseason mocks, I was getting him in the last couple rounds. Okay, it's worth it then.
Yep.
But I still his like average ADP is still pretty low.
I think late mock. I've seen some of the mocks I've seen. I think you're looking for a late guy who can be a home run guy. That's like a Michael Thomas. Antonio Brown
that late.
Depends on the mock you go to, but we need you to make a decision. So what column is he going in?
For me, I'm going to throw Antonio Brown into the snoozer column, just because I think he will outperform his ADP.
It's all right.
Yep. Because I also have pretty good faith in Godwin or Mike Evans getting hurt and missing games. So I think he'll outperform his ADP.
Okay, fair enough.
So, and he's got the GOAT thrown to him. So, all right, guys.
You would go there.
Had to push your buttons there, Kyle. All right.
Okay.
Here's one that I think is going to be a very interesting one to see where you guys go with this. I'm curious your thoughts on Julio Jones with his change of scenery and a strong running game there in Tennessee. Kyle, what do you think on Julio Jones, snoozer or loser?
So I don't think it was a horrible move, him moving to Tennessee. Him opposite A.J. Brown is going to be disgusting. But they also run a lot in that offense. Tannehill's not airing it out 100 times a game. So for me, I still think he's going a little bit too early, just off name recognition. But it's slight. But for me, he's a bit of a loser. I'm not getting him in any of my drafts.
Interesting. Okay. Again, that name recognition. It's very interesting to hear Julio Jones and loser in the same sentence. So
if you get him, it's not terrible, but I don't think he'll live up to where he's being drafted currently.
Okay, interesting. Tony, over to you. Julio Jones, snoozer or loser?
That's a surprise receiver. I wasn't expecting his name. So he's a good receiver to kind of have this back and forth. If you've seen any of my quick hit videos, I'm a huge AJ Brown guy. I just love AJ Brown going into this year. I love Tannehill. I think Tannehill is one of the most underrated fantasy quarterbacks, maybe the most underrated fantasy quarterbacks out there. And I love Julio. Full disclosure, I've had him in a couple dynasty leagues, and so you don't have to sell me on Julio. I just don't see him producing in Tennessee the way we're used to seeing him produce in Atlanta. This is a completely different type of offense, and the volume is not necessarily going to be there in the passing game to get Julio those types of numbers that he's used to getting in Atlanta. AJ is no doubt the alpha male there. He is the number one wide receiver. Julio has also had an issue staying healthy. And where you need to take him, I don't want to go into my season already nervous about his, is he going to be able to last me a full season? How many games is he going to miss? I will tell you a guy, and I mentioned this in my video on Tannehill, but don't sleep on Fursker. Like, this guy can be a real sleeper in that offense. I think he might be more of a snoozer in this Tennessee offense. Overlooked. They moved past, Jonu's out of there, and I think he's going to actually be maybe a bigger part in that passing game than people are expecting. So all of that kind of equates into, for me, Julio, and I hate to say Julio. Is there another word I can use for loser, or do I have to say loser?
You have to say loser.
I hate to call that guy a loser.
I'm really going to have to hear the word come out of your mouth.
Fantasy loser for 2021 based on his ADP.
That is fair.
That's as I could put it.
So, I mean, in fairness for him, he's not being drafted as high. In previous years, he would have been drafted first couple rounds. Now you're able to get him pretty deep into the draft. So his ADP is not near. I know we keep talking about he's not going to perform like he has in years past, and I think everyone's recognizing that, right? So his ADP has dropped quite a bit. So
he's going around 15 to 20 is the range he's falling in.
Man, that's tough.
That's even higher than I thought.
Yeah, that's higher, but that's more of probably a redraft league, because I was going to bring that up. You say you have him in a couple dynasty leagues. I also have him in at least one dynasty league, if not two, because his ADP is so low. Because not only is he not going to perform like years past, but he's getting older too, right? And everyone's after those younger ones in a dynasty, so you can actually pick him up for pretty cheap.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I think the word I used was had, HAD. I had him in a couple of dynasties.
Oh, okay.
I no longer have him.
I have him because I feel like he's going to be a decent flex play this year. I think he'll do fine for that. But yes, he's not the alpha anymore. Does that maybe play to his advantage of not having the focus being on him? If he has these other weapons around him, if he's on a team where they actually have to respect the run, if they have another wide receiver that they have to cover on the other side, he's not being followed by the best cornerbacks. He's not being focused on. There's a tight end there that, and there's a little bit more of a mobile quarterback. Let's say, Tannehill is much more mobile than Matt Ryan. So there's a lot of different pieces there that maybe make the volume's not there. Maybe the targets are better. Maybe he's more open. There's more opportunity in each target. Maybe not as many targets, but there's more opportunity in each target. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me just throw this out there real quick, only because you guys brought this up on Antonio Brown. his value obviously changes significantly if there's an injury.
Yeah.
If anything happens to AJ, if he goes down for any length of time, or even Derrick Henry, that totally changes their game script and how they run that offense. And at that point, we could see he has the potential to really kind of shoot through the roof as far as his value, because the talent is still there with Julio. He still has demonstrated that talent is there.
But we could say that about most wide receivers.
I wouldn't agree with that.
I was saying like a good wide receiver that's in a duo situation. Like if you've got like, CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. I mean, even Evans and Godwin. I mean, one goes down, the other's going to benefit from it. So where you've got these multiple good wide receivers on the same team, an injury could really give someone a huge uptick. For sure.
I only raised the point because you raised the point with Antonio Brown.
Fair.
And it's just to say the one thing that Julio has, still even at his age, is talent. The guy is uber talent. He's still an elite receiver. He just has a hard time staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But my point was simply that he still has that talent, and he doesn't have the head issues. This guy is a pro, and he will produce if he has that opportunity.
Now, with all that being said, Julio Jones is Tony. What was?
You forced
Julio
it out
Jones?
of me. You forced me to say a fantasy football loser for 2021.
Yeah, there it is. I just had to hear you say it again.
That's all right.
All right, guys. Let's do one more wide receiver here. How about Traequan Smith?
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear, with Michael Thomas going down, Trequan Smith. A lot of people don't know much about him. He's just kind of coming on right now. Tony, thoughts on Trequan Smith this season?
He's he's an interesting receiver. So I've got him as a snoozer. I think, I just think that relationship in New Orleans is fractured. I just think Michael Thomas didn't do himself any favors with how this injury was handled. Sean Payton seems to be livid, and I don't pretend to have inside information there, just from the outside looking in. I just don't know who else they're going to target. Who's going to catch footballs in New Orleans? And this guy has been expected to have a breakout season. And, after you get past Kamara, they're lacking playmakers. Somebody's going to have to step up and catch the football. It's looking like Winston is going to be the starting quarterback in there. We know Winston likes to air the ball out. So
to the other team.
What's that?
To the other team.
To both teams.
to the other team, yes. And in all fairness, sometimes he is the best quarterback for the other team. But
if they're playing the Giants, for sure.
Yeah. But I don't see Trequan he is really kind of disappeared in many mocks. He's really an afterthought, and the guy is going to have the potential and the opportunity to really outperform his ADP. So I slide him over into my snoozer column for 2021.
Good call. Kyle.
And one last thing too is I don't really know, and I don't know if anybody really knows what to expect from Michael Thomas if and when he returns. So I don't necessarily even think it's just for a part of the season, because Michael Thomas has got to get himself back in football shape. He seems to have some type of headspace issues. So I think on the season, Trequan Smith could surprise a lot of people.
Kind of on that Michael Thomas, since you brought it up. I mean, we saw that all last year where, okay, he's coming back in 2 weeks. He's coming back next week. He's coming back to it. It just never came back. He failed everyone in fantasy. So even if they say, oh, he's coming back, I don't know, October, he'll be back in mid-October, I will believe it when I see it, kind of thing. I mean, you can't really trust those timelines. Who knows? He'll find another surgery to have or something right after that. Who knows? So like you said, maybe a little bit of a head case there. So Kyle, how about for you, Trequan Smith, snoozer or loser?
I definitely agree with that take on Michael Thomas and all of that y'all just discussed. He does seem to have a little bit of head case in him. Maybe not as much as Antonio Brown, but but he's got some in him. As far as Trequan Smith, I mean, Tony said it. They got Kamara, and then I know everybody in fantasy football circles is talking up Troutman at tight end, which I think he's got an opportunity to really step in there and do well. Traequan Smith's all they got at receiver. I couldn't even tell you who's after him on their depth chart right now, which is kind of incredible in itself. But they've been touting him since he was drafted, stepping in and being that number 2 to Michael Thomas, and he hadn't done squat. Even in prior years when Thomas missed games, he didn't do anything in those games. I know because I've plugged him in there in a flex on one of those times, and I was like, seriously, that's it? So I don't know what to expect from him if he starts out the season as number 1 receiver. I could see him, he's going to have to do something. Like Tony said, Jameis is going to throw the ball. But he's being drafted so low right now, he can't be anything but a snoozer, right? So he's got to outperform that ADP easily. So I'm going with snoozer, but I'm probably not shooting for him in my drafts.
Yeah, I agree. One quick point, just to jump on something that Kyle said. You're right. He hasn't produced in prior seasons. That said, from all I can tell, Sean Payton is extremely smart coach. I mean, he's considered to be an offensive mastermind. Now, part of that probably has to do with the fact that he had one of the best quarterbacks ever played the game, Drew Brees. But it's interesting that they haven't pivoted from Smith. That they haven't brought in other receivers. They're still banking on this guy. So that tells me they must see something in him, where maybe we could take that into consideration when you're kind of thinking about how to value him going into this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
True.
Okay.
Very possible.
So I think by default of being drafted so low in draft, which is a great way to be qualified as a snoozer.
Yeah, he's being drafted. He's being drafted with the first rounds of kickers and defenses. So
yeah, that's pretty low.
That's pretty low. All right. Okay, let's go back to running backs really quick because there's one or two I want to touch on that I'm curious to see what you think on them. And the first one I'm going to say is Josh Jacobs. That's been an interesting offseason. And so there's a lot of torn discussion on that online. I see a lot. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. Kyle, we'll let you go first on this. Josh Jacobs, snoozer or loser this season?
For me, honestly, I'm not even sure where his ADP is right now. I know when they signed Kenyon Drake, it scared a lot of people, as it probably should. I mean, if he can kill Chase Edmonds in Arizona, he can kill Josh Jacobs in, well, I guess it's not Oakland anymore, is it? But Vegas.
I mean, he essentially killed David Johnson, right?
Yeah, I'm not a big Josh Jacobs guy either. Anyways, I mean, because he hasn't split touches much in the past. But I just don't think he's as talented as people make him out to be either. I think he's very dependent on what his O-line can block for him anyways. So now if he's splitting carries with a Kenyon Drake, I don't think that's going to get better. So for me, I don't care where he's even being drafted right now. I know it dropped significantly after the signing of Drake, but for me, he's a loser regardless because I don't want him on my team. You take away half the workload, of the past few years, and he's just not that good. So, yeah, loser for me.
Okay, strong opinion from Kyle on this one. Much appreciated. Let's hop over to Tony and see how strong his opinion is on this. Snoozer or loser, Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I want to start by saying I'm a huge Josh Jacobs fan, the person. Like if you know his story, his backstory, he's got a tremendous story. As a kid, teenager, he was homeless. I don't know if you've seen that. If not, you can certainly find a short documentary. I think ESPN did one on him. Tremendous story. So I love the kid.
Way to call him a loser, Kyle. You jerk.
Love him coming out of Alabama. Last year was his make or break year for me. I think last year there was a lot of talk about him becoming more of a receiving back and becoming more of a focal point of that offense. It just didn't seem to happen. Make no mistake, that offense runs through Darren Waller. That guy is just a unique specimen, and it will continue to run through Darren Waller. The fact that they brought in Kenyon Drake, not just brought in Kenyon Drake, but paid the guy $11 million, that tells me a lot. And then if you've kind of follow that story at all, Kenyon Drake made a comment that this year the Raiders are, quote unquote, going to space, meaning that they are going to start to spread the ball out and go more towards a wide open offense. And I think that's where Kenyon Drake fits in. He's going to be that receiving receiver. I do think Gruden loves Jacobs. It's hard not to love the kid. The guy is just a grinder. He pounds the football. I think, I don't know if he's number one or number two, but yards after contact, those yak yards as a running back. I know Chubb is up there, but as far as his fantasy value, it's plummeting. And I think, if I kind of checked real quick, Kyle, just see where it's at as of today, but he's going around that 20, maybe early 20s, late teens, but right around that 20 spot. And I just don't see it. I just don't see his value there. And he's not going to have the volume. He's not going to get those touches. He's not going to have the receptions. I'm not quite sure who's going to get those red zone looks. So for me, I hate to say it, but he's a fantasy loser this year.
All right. Sounds pretty decided. So it is decided. Josh Jacobs is a loser this year. All right. Yeah, that kind of breaks my heart. I do like Josh Jacobs as a person quite a bit. And from Tulsa. So me and Kyle being in Oklahoma, love that Oklahoma connection. So but yeah, I agree with both of you actually. So that's 3 loser votes. Not that mine really matters. Okay, let's go to
yours. Doesn't matter until we disagree.
Right, right, and then it still probably doesn't actually matter that much. But okay, so let's go to what I think is one of the most controversial this upcoming season. And I don't know if you know who I'm going to on this.
I have no idea.
I got a slight idea.
I'm going to say Jonathan Taylor.
Mm.
I mean, there's some controversy online. People, you either really love him or you're not touching him with Kyle's 10-foot pole that he has. So, I'm really curious to see what you guys think about Jonathan Taylor this year. We'll start with you, Tony. Jonathan Taylor, snoozer or loser in 2021?
I'm not quite on the John Taylor bandwagon. I definitely like him more in Dynasty as a hold than I do in redraft. I need to see it for a full season from him. The injury to Wentz certainly didn't help him at all. I think could see more stack boxes and I know that there are some sites and some people out there who are all over Jonathan Taylor. He unless you can get him for value, he's on my do not draft list. I just don't feel comfortable taking him in the spot where you need to take him this year. So I have him. Hate to call him a loser, but I'm going to call him a running back avoid for now.
Okay, so at the value, where do you feel comfortable taking? How low does he need to drop for you to be able to feel comfortable to take him? In Dynasty and Redraft, I think those are two different determinations.
Yeah,
I'd like to know both.
Dynasty probably, top 10, I'm comfortable taking him. But in redraft, there are several guys. Like, for example, I'll give you a name of a guy who consistently goes after him that I would definitely take before him, Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler, for me, that's a guy I want on my team. That guy is I don't want to call him a snoozer because but coming off the injury last year, a lot of people were high on him last year. He's kind of under the radar this year. He is regularly going after Jonathan Taylor, and I just don't understand that.
This is about Jonathan Taylor, Tony.
I get it. I'm giving you an example, though. Just maybe where would I feel comfortable taking him. So someplace after the top 15, because that's about where Eckler's going.
I mean, Zeke is going after him in the Dynasty drafts I've been in after Taylor.
Yeah, no,
I mean, Taylor's going early in
Dynasty drafts or redrafts?
In Dynasty.
Yeah.
He's going
so
really
Dynasty is a
early.
little bit of a different conversation because you're thinking more of a long-term play.
Yep.
And so I can see somebody making an argument for him, especially, Wentz is going to come back, and I think Wentz helps him. But me personally, I need to see it for some type of consistency before I put him on my draft. And as far as like you're talking about, and I know we want to keep it on Jonathan Taylor, but like Najee Harris, I think Najee Harris to me is a guy that I have above Taylor, even in Dynasty.
Okay, so you're saying Jonathan Taylor, Dynasty snoozer, redraft, loser.
I used the word, yeah. I said, yeah, so Dynasty, I wouldn't say snoozer because he's going high in Dynasty, but I'm calling him a fantasy avoid.
Okay, we'll let that be
for where his ADP is at.
Okay, perfect. All right, Kyle, over to you. Let's see if you can stick with the format of snoozer or loser.
You can give me the referee shirt if you want.
It's easier for me to just give you guys a hard time. It's way easier to be the smart aleck in the group than to have to be the real thinker. So I'll leave the brain work to you guys, and I'll just sit over here and make my bad jokes. Kyle, snoozer, loser, Jonathan Taylor, 2021.
So pretty much everything I want to say about Jonathan Taylor, Tony just said in the first 20 seconds of his response. Everything about Wentz being injured, everything, about wanting to see it for a full season. Look, he had, 5 or 6 really good games at the end of the year against probably 5 or 6 of the easiest run game opponents in the league.
Yep.
That's not enough for me to draft him in the first round of a redraft. If you're talking Dynasty, yeah, I'm with Tony. I think in the first round is fine for him if you're talking Dynasty. But if you're talking redraft, I mean, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Eckler, those guys, I absolutely, Harris even, I like all of them better than Jonathan Taylor this year for redraft. I don't think he's going to live up to it this year.
You like Harris in redraft more?
You still got Nyheim Hines there, too, who is not going to just all of a sudden not get any carries this year.
Marlon Mack
is coming back. I think he'll get a handful of touches a game. I don't see him living up to where he's being drafted at.
Yeah, I actually tend to agree. I think Jonathan Taylor is going...
It's a loser if I didn't use the term.
Yeah, there you go. So together, you guys have him as a loser to avoid.
Yes, avoid that loser.
Something like that, yeah.
I agree. I think, and this is one of those unique situations where I think they have 3 really good running backs there, because I still think Mack is a good running back, and I could see them splitting carries enough to preserve Jonathan Taylor for the long run, because they have the talent to be able to do that. Don't risk him getting injured or wearing him down. I think this is a unique situation where I could see something like that happening. It makes me nervous on workload and opportunity. And so I agree that he is a loser to avoid for sure. So, okay, guys, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Good job, and we'll see you next time for some other players and other positions. Talk to you later, guys.
Bye.